So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Now listen, man, we're gonna get into some cursed objects. All right, so remember, these cursed objects will make you question reality. This is for entertainment purposes only, all right? Let's check them out.
Valley of the Dolls. Many people find dolls cute, but I would argue there's literally nothing creepier. Case in point, let me introduce you to Little Jimmy. This doll was won by 12-year-old Leroy Bland at a Kentucky carnival in 1910. The doll is creepy enough with its cracked porcelain face and unsettling blood-red smile, but its story only got darker when, in 1914, the First World War broke out. Leroy's mother knitted Jimmy its own soldier uniform to honor all the brave young men serving in the war. Little did she know that World War I would become one of the most deadly conflicts in all of history, with a casualty toll estimated between 15 to 22 million. Yeah, little Jimmy here became a pretty dark talisman, but he just...
I mean, how could she have known, though? So it can't... It's a little odd, don't get me wrong. It's still a little odd, but how could she have known? All right, we got to give her a pass on that one.
Looks creepy. Whereas I've got two real-life stories of truly cursed dolls. And it'll be up to you to decide which of these disturbing dolls deserves the title of Most Cursed Toy. Are you ready? First up, we have this 3-foot-tall doll dressed in a sailor suit. Looks innocent enough, right?
No.
Well, wait until you've heard its full, twisted tale. It's more than 117 years old, and is presently on display at the Fort East...
I thought that was him. That's the one you're not supposed to look into his eyes, right? I thought that was him.
Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. But before he came to the museum in 1994, he was the property of Gene Otto, who was gifted the handmade doll as a child. Gene named the doll Robert, and quickly became attached to his new toy. Until one night, Gene woke up to find Robert sat at the edge of his bed. Moments later, his mother was awakened by the sound of Gene's screams and furniture being thrown around the room. When she finally opened the door, the bedroom was a mess and Gene was crying. When she asked Gene what happened, he pointed at the doll, still at the foot of the bed, and said, "Robert did it." This would become Gene's catchphrase whenever something was broken or went missing in their home. Sounds like a typical...
Again, parents, we gotta start. Didn't Child's Play, the Chucky movie, didn't it teach us something? We gotta listen to our kid. Kid tells you the doll did this, the doll should meet the business end of your shotgun or whatever you got. You know what I'm saying? Like the doll, believe your children.
Child's excuse to lie their way out of trouble, or so Gene's parents thought. They soon began witnessing other supernatural phenomenon, claiming they often heard their son upstairs talking to the doll before hearing a different voice respond. There were also reports of the sound of a demented giggling, and visitors spotted Robert running up the stairs. Despite these spooky accounts, Robert continued to live with Gene, and eventually, as Gene grew out of his doll phase, Robert was stored away in a trunk in the attic. But children in the street claimed they saw Robert staring out at them from the attic window. It felt like he was watching, always watching. They swore he would disappear and reappear without any explanation, and so kids began avoiding the house altogether. Gene sadly passed away in 1974, and when new owners moved into the house, their young daughter was delighted to find Robert in the attic. But this soon took a bad turn, as their daughter began to claim that the doll was trying to hurt her. They dismissed the kids' claims as an overactive imagination.
Here we go again.
Soon they began to notice Robert moved around the house even when no one was home. And even visitors noticed his blank expression seemed to change when anyone badmouthed his previous owner, Gene.
I mean, at this point, isn't the house Robert's? He's the last surviving member of that family, so them moving in, he like, yo, get out. And that might be the answer to a lot of hauntings and stuff like that. They feel like they're the last member of the family that bought the house initially, so it's theirs. And we're intruding. We're trespassing. Might be.
Eventually, after one too many inexplicable occurrences, Robert was donated to the museum, where he resides to this day. Now, locals believe that it was actually the maid of the Otto family who gifted Jean the doll, and having been treated badly by the family, cursed it with dark magic as revenge. However, no records have been found to prove this, and scientists can't accurately test or prove the claims of this mischievous doll, as they are all from eyewitness statements, though many people swear their photos are ruined if they ever try to take selfies with Robert without his permission. Despite his supposedly wicked nature, Robert has become something of a celebrity. He receives fan letters from across the globe and has more than 1,000 Facebook friends. Oof,
Wow.
kinda embarrassing to know I have less friends than a haunted doll. While Robert's cursed story might leave you feeling uneasy, there are dolls out there with an even more hair-raising past. And for this next one, we need to hop across the globe to Japan and rewind all the way back to 1918. It was here that a young man named Ikichi Suzuki was traveling through northern Japan when he saw a small, 16-inch tall doll dressed in a kimono for sale. Without a second thought, he bought the doll, and when he got home, gifted it to his 2-year-old sister, Kikuko. The little girl loved the doll so much, she decided,
We gotta start doing our research on these gifts before we give them to kids, man. Like, we gotta do better, bro. Gotta do better. We just see something, think it's good, think it looks nice. Oh, my daughter or son would love it. Grab it, buy it, and give it to them. Not even know we handing them something harmful or possessed or cursed.
to name it after herself, calling it Okika. However, a year later, Japan was overrun with yellow fever, an infectious and deadly disease that resulted in many fatalities, including poor Kikuko. The family buried her and put the doll in their family's shrine, a common practice in many Japanese households to commemorate the dead. The family would regularly pay their respects to the doll in honor of their daughter, but one day, when he opened the shrine, Akichi noticed something unbelievably strange. When he bought the doll, it had a neat little shoulder-length bob haircut, but now, the doll's hair was much longer. It had grown into a shaggy mesh that reached down to its knees. Unable to explain what was happening, the family cut the doll's hair and placed it back in the shrine. But when they opened the shrine again, its hair had grown back. No matter how much they cut Okiku's hair, it wouldn't be long before it required another terrifying trim. Unable to explain what was happening, the family soon began to believe that the spirit of their daughter was living inside the doll. In 1938, they made the difficult decision to move to another district, but they decided against taking the Okiku doll with them, as they feared that whatever fueled this hair-growing magic relied on a close proximity to their daughter's grave.
Watch it show up where they live at. Watch it show up to their new resident.
And so, the family requested their local temple take care of the doll. Okiku is now housed in a private...
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I thought it was going to show up. Imagine you traveling across wherever to get away from this thing, and then it show up at your doorstep. Whew.
Shrine in the Menenji Temple in Hokkaido, Japan. And locals claim that Okiku's hair continues to grow, with the monks of the temple apparently still having to trim the doll's hair to this day. Now, I think it's important to note that during the first half of the 20th century, many parts of Japan were pre-industrial and rural, where folklore was rife. Local legends were told of evil spirits and creatures harassing normal folk, and dolls in particular were regarded as powerful instruments of magic. So Okiku's growing hair may just be a local legend. But what's really freaky is that the hair has been tested, and it was found to be real human hair. Like the story wasn't freaky enough already. Was someone perhaps changing Okiku's hair out somehow? And if so, why? Now under the protection of the monks that serve the shrine, with all photography of the doll presently prohibited, scientists may never be able to determine exactly where this hair is coming from, or if this tale is even real. One thing's for sure though, don't mess with dolls. Which of these dolls creeped you out the most? For Robert, hit that subscribe button, and for Okiku, hit that like button. All done? Great. Now let me introduce you to some other cursed objects that defy explanation. Grizzly chair. This is the Busby stoop chair. Looks like a pretty ordinary chair, right? Well, it's been permanently nailed to this wall, purposefully out of reach of any butts that might accidentally sit on it. But why? Well, Thomas Busby, after whom the chair was named, was actually a criminal who operated in North Yorkshire, England back in 1702.
Got drunk or
He ran
something.
a coin counterfeiting business with his father-in-law, flooding the market with fake currency. After an argument between the two got violent, Thomas ended up slaying his father-in-law. There are several variations on what happens next, but one claims Thomas was drunk in his favorite inn, sat in his favorite old oak chair when officers came to arrest him. Before they took him away, he blankly uttered, "May death come to anyone who dare sit in my chair."
Yep.
Some very choice last words indeed.
I think it's pretty scary how many of these folklore, myths, urban legends that we know. I'm gonna say we because I include y'all. Y'all watch these just as much as I do. That we know. I was pretty familiar, not all the way with the full story, but I was pretty familiar with this one.
His lifeless body was exhibited on the gibbet, or stoop, that stood at the crossroads where the inn was, which would later inspire its name change. The villagers didn't think much of it at first, but then slowly they realized that some who chose to sit in the chair didn't live for much longer. One of the most dramatic stories from 1894 concerned a chimney sweep. Drinking at the inn, he decided to sit in Busby's chair and was found dead the following morning. Soon after, an apprentice challenged his co-worker to tempt the chair's curse, a bet he soon came to regret as the co-worker died shortly after. What's more, many of the young soldiers who sat in the chair before going off to fight in World War II never returned from the battlefield. It was only in the 1970s, after a delivery driver sat in the chair and perished in a crash a few hours later, that the landlord decided to be rid of the 300-year-old curse and donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum. Today,
I'm surprised they didn't try to charge the landlord or the business establishment who had the chair in it, who knew the history and knew what was happening to those people. It was because they were allowed to sit in that chair. I'm surprised they didn't go after that business owner that had that chair in his establishment.
Can be seen pinned to the wall, eternally reserved for Thomas Busby, and well out of reach of anyone who might try to perch on it. Now, it's important to note that there have never been any official records linking the timeline of the victims sitting in the chair and their demises. It's practically all hearsay. Moreover, a furniture expert believes on the basis of the design and wood used that the chair in the museum was actually made in 1840, 138 years after Thomas Busby was executed. So the only definitive way to prove whether or not the Busby stoop chair is cursed is to take a seat. Unsurprisingly, no scientist has been bold enough to try. Toxic masculinity. Have you ever heard the phrase, "turn that frown upside down"?
Of course.
Well, Japanese no masks do that literally. A no mask is a traditional wooden mask used in Japanese theater, specially carved to represent either a smiling face or a frowning face, depending on the angle that the mask is viewed. If you tilt your head downwards while wearing the mask, it appears more joyful or relieved. But if the mask is tilted upwards, you will seem depressed or sad. However, only trained actors are allowed to wear these masks, because a cursed legend haunts their very existence. According to folklore dating back to the 14th century, no masks have the ability to absorb negative emotions such as anger, hostility, or jealousy. The mask then creates its own evil identity, draining away the life force of the one wearing it. The legend even states that the mask will remain on the person even after their body begins to rot. That is to say, the mask will possess the dead body to search for its next victim. Though this is all just Japanese
So I guess that's why I've heard for so long or throughout my life that you don't just go randomly putting a mask on your face. Anybody else heard that? Or was that just people messing with us, messing with me in general? I heard that growing up, and it's not from the movie The Mask or nothing like that. I just always heard you just don't pick up a random mask and put it on your face like that.
folklore. It's a legend scientists have never been able to riddle the truth out of. So where did such a sinister curse even come from? It might be linked to how wearing a mask affects one's behavior, as being anonymous psychologically empowers people to do things they might not ordinarily do. But being anonymous and being a possessed husk of a human are two very different things. Even so, one thing's for sure. These masks are 10 times scarier than the ones we're all used to wearing. Under pressure. They say that diamonds are a girl's best friend, but it turns out black diamonds are a girl's waking nightmare. Unlike colorless diamonds, natural black diamonds contain trace amounts of graphite within them, which give the stones a solid black coloring. And there's perhaps no more stunning specimen than the huge 67.5 carat black Orlov diamond, although it was once even more stunning at a colossal 195 carats. It was discovered in 19th century India, where it was stolen by a greedy Jesuit cleric from a statue of Brahma, the Hindu god of creation. The jewel is officially known as the Eye of Brahma, who apparently did not take kindly to his eye being stolen. A catastrophic curse followed in the wake of all those who came into contact with the black diamond. An eye for an eye, as they say. Following the diamond's Western world tour left a trail of destruction, akin to an assassin skilled at making members of the upper class meet highly mysterious ends. Its new owner then supposedly tried to break the curse by splitting the diamond into 3, before having one of the gems, what we now know as the Black Orlov, recut and set into a necklace, which sold for $352,000 back in 2006. However, skepticism has been cast on this so-called curse. Whether this is a case of incredible coincidence or complete fabrication, I don't think anyone's keen to wear that big black diamond anytime soon.
I wouldn't.
However, the Black Orlov isn't the only...
And then people can tell me coincidence all they want. I'm just not taking the chance. I'm not. I'm not. I'd rather be safe than sorry. That's just like the rocking chair. Why even chance it, bro? A lot of people probably be like, oh, those people passed or died from coincidence. It was just a coincidence that they had. It was just their time. I'd rather be safe again. Rather be safe than sorry. Stop playing with me like that.
A gem stolen from India with a curse set upon it. This jewel is tellingly named the Cursed Amethyst. Sounds pretty apt until you learn it's actually a purple sapphire. The legend of this stone begins back in 1857, when cavalryman Colonel W. Ferris is said to have brought the amethyst to England after it was stolen out of a sacred temple of Indra. And just like the other stones stolen from an Indian temple, it soon took its revenge. The colonel's health rapidly deteriorated, and he went bankrupt. After his son inherited the stone, the same fate befell him. Then, in 1890, Edward Heron Allen received the stone, and almost immediately, he too was plagued by disasters. He quickly re-gifted the stone to a friend who was a singer, but she suddenly lost her voice after receiving it. Finally, desperate to be rid of it, Edward threw it into the Regent's Canal. Yet, 3 months later, the stone was rescued from the canal by a dredger, who sold it to a dealer who recognized the gem and returned it to Edward. He became so paranoid about the stone that he packed it away in 7 boxes before locking it inside a bank safe. Edward eventually declared the safe could only be opened 3 years after his death, which happened in 1943. The stone was then donated to the British Museum, with a warning note from Edward listing its history of evil. Today, the stone remains locked up in the vault of the Natural History Museum in London, where it's forbidden to touch. Now, the rational part of me wants to believe this is nothing more than a string of incredible coincidences. But as even museum experts aren't taking their chances, maybe this curse is legit.
I wouldn't even want to work there. Would y'all want to work? That's why I'm glad I never went to work at a museum. Now that I know some of the things I know and some of the things that these places could possess, cursed, haunted, different items like that. And you just working there trying to make some money, not knowing what you're subjecting yourself to be around. No, I'm glad, thankful I never worked at a museum.
Way. I don't think I'll be purchasing any giant, super expensive gemstones from here on.
Facts.
Like that was ever a risk. Say boo. We all want that one perfect Instagram selfie. And it's super annoying when people photobomb your perfect pose. But have you ever been photobombed by a ghost before? It may sound ridiculous, but ghosts have been appearing in photographs long before the first selfie was ever taken. In fact, the art of capturing ghosts on film, called spirit photography, can be traced all the way back to the 19th century. In the 1860s, American photographer William Mumler appeared to capture an image of a very famous ghost, the deceased President Abraham Lincoln, who was stood behind his wife, Mary. Following this, William's business boomed as he received a whole list of clients keen to make a paranormal connection with their loved ones. But with huge popularity came the equally huge skeptics. Most prominent among them was P.T. Barnum, the businessman who popularized the three-ring circus, who took William to court. He charged William with exploiting grieving families by deliberately faking these ghost photos. The crux moment of the trial came when a photograph was presented of P.T. Barnum with none other than the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. You see, these ghost photographers actually relied on one clever trick. William would insert a previously prepared glass plate featuring an image of the deceased into the camera, in front of an unused glass plate that was used to capture an image of the client.
Wow.
This double exposure technique then superimposed a ghostly image of the deceased onto the main photo, creating a spectral sight. This followed even creepier allegations that William had actually broken into its clients' houses to steal photos of their deceased relatives. While in other cases...
You ever ask yourself how far are people willing to go? He didn't have no limits. This dude here, he didn't have no limit.
Supposed spirits featured in these photos were actually previously taken portraits of people still alive.
Wow.
Despite the evidence mounted against him, William was acquitted of fraud. However, he didn't escape the court of public opinion, and with his reputation ruined, his business never recovered. But even though ghosts appearing in old photographs has been thoroughly debunked, ghostly figures still keep appearing in iPhone photo reels today. Does Apple have a secret streaming contract with the dead? Well, actually, it's due to the way smartphones take photos. Unlike analog film, which capture an image in one flash, smartphones take photos in stages, just like a scanner moves over a piece of paper. The smartphone's camera sensors need time to record all the picture's information. This is called image aliasing, and as a result, anything moving through the shot could appear distorted in the photo. So this is a spooky mystery that scientists can solve. What they can't figure out, though, is people's continuing belief in ghosts despite all the evidence disproving their existence. What about you? Do you believe in ghosts? Let me know down in the comments below. A chance in hell. Professional rivalries can lead to some damn dirty business, no matter what industry they're in. However, back in the 1890s, one professional rivalry within the Welsh architect community took a demonic turn. It was at this time that St. Mary's Church in the city center of Swansea decided to undertake some major renovations. One local architect offered to take on the project, but he was turned down in favor of an outside contractor. Enraged by this snub, he began to plot a most devilish revenge. He bought a row of cottages next to the church, demolished them, and built red brick offices in their place, before planting a 3-foot-tall carved sculpture of a devil atop it. Those eyes really follow you around, don't they? The vengeful architect reportedly cursed the church by saying, "When your church is destroyed and burnt to the ground, my devil will remain laughing." Wow, who knew edgelords existed before Reddit? The devil statue became known as Old Nick, and he unblinkingly watched over the holy house day after day from his spot on the roof. And then, a little over 50 years later, during World War II, the Germans bombed Swansea. The 72-hour bombardment damaged 11,000 buildings and razed 872 to the ground, including St. Mary's Church. Almost every structure in the city center was flattened, but the building with Old Nick on top, shockingly, remained standing. The architect's curse had come to pass in one of the most statistically unlikely ways possible. Though eventually Old Nick's building was demolished in 1962 and the statue mysteriously disappeared. But with the devil's luck, Old Nick was later recovered in an English garage. After a quick makeover,
Who would want that? Who? It's some it's some psychopaths, man. A lot of psychopaths, bro. No normal, sane person would want to put that in their home. Bring that type of energy in their home. Look at this thing. It just looks deranged the minute. Yeah. No way. There's no way I'm taking that home.
the sinister stone statue was put on watch in the Swansea Quadrant shopping center. But given his history, the locals felt uneasy with him unblinkingly watching them, and so he was relocated to the Swansea Museum in 2019. Today, he can be found safely sat behind glass and out of the eye line of any nearby churches. Evil Elmo. Sesame Street is one of the most beloved children's programs in the world, with the little Muppet Elmo being an iconic main part of the show. He quickly became a popular children's toy, but back in 2008, one 2-year-old in Florida had an encounter with his Elmo doll that chilled his mother to the bone. That day, Melissa Bowman was watching her son James play with his Elmo Knows Your Name doll, a personalized plush talking electronic toy, when suddenly, the fuzzy doll blurted out, "Kill James." What's worse, the toddler then started parroting the phrase. The doll and the toddler began repeating "Kill James, kill James" in a maniacally cultish chant. Eventually, the doll's batteries ran out, but even when they were replaced, Elmo continued to repeat in a sing-song voice, "Kill James." Had some kind of...
What parent is going to replace the battery in a toy that's hollering "Kill James"? Your child. Battery's dead. Gotta get him back to saying what he was just saying. What is wrong with people?
demon-possessed Elmo turning the toy into a bloodthirsty machine? It turns out it may have been more sinister than that, as this particular Elmo doll can be programmed to repeat phrases and remember your child's name. It seems impossible, but unless Elmo was really possessed, someone must have uttered the evil phrase to the doll for it to learn it in the first place. Wow, never thought I'd be rooting for the demonic possession explanation, but here we are. Gauze and effect. Okay, just so you know, I'm putting myself on the line by just telling you guys about this next item. This is what's known as the unlucky mummy, though technically it's not actually a mummified corpse, rather just a sarcophagus lid of an unknown high-status Egyptian woman from around 900 BCE. The artifact was found at Thebes in the late 1800s, where it was donated to the British Museum. But why the name? Well, records state that of the 4 Englishmen who initially bought it, 2 perished in suspicious accidents and 2 lost their fortune and perished in poverty. It's said that this ancient artifact brought death, illness, and bankruptcy to any who came into contact with it, hence its now very apt nickname. But why? It's possibly because the unknown woman carved into the lid was actually a priestess of the powerful sun god Amen-Ra. She may have used powerful ceremonial magic to curse anyone who dare disturb her final resting place. To be fair, I'd be pretty angry too if someone stole my coffin lid. However, the most unbelievable part of this artifact story links it to one of the worst disasters in modern history, the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. While it wasn't on the doomed cruise ship, one of the 1,500 victims lost to the Titanic was journalist William Stead. He was the very first to pen articles about the mummy's curse. Survivors from the disaster recall William telling stories of the ominous artifact over dinner. Perhaps that alone was enough to tempt the fate of the mummy's misfortune. It could just be an eerie coincidence, or more likely, a total fallacy. Because aside from the sunken journalist, there are no factual records linking anyone's untimely demise to the coffin lid. So it was more than likely just a ghost story, made up to spark interest in this old artifact. Lucky me.
As much as I've looked into the Titanic, that's the first time I've heard that story come out surrounding the Titanic or linking it to the Titanic. I ain't gonna say that's the sole reason, but that coupled with a lot of other things going on that was happening, predictions, different things said, done, that ain't helped its case. Listen, man, I keep telling y'all, man, be careful what you buy, be careful where you go. These little garage sales, different things, stuff you bring back to your home, man, it can do some damage. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video. Leave a like, share the video, subscribe, and stick around and stay tuned. Until next time, I'm gone.